So on the day that the 2016 regular season schedule has been released, we have a very exciting game between the Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos to kick off the year. I think it's going to be on a Thursday night game. There's just so many great matchups going into the season to kick off the year. I'm very excited. But outside of that, let's talk about the NFL draft, something that we have not been talking about here on the channel for quite a while now. I have a bunch of scouting reports I was going to upload, but I think it's kind of late to do that. But hopefully if I do get around to it, it will not be until tomorrow. But we're here talking about the selection, who is going to be picking who where. And we're talking about the Los Angeles Rams and the Tennessee Titans. Earlier this morning, I get this text message as I'm walking out of work that the Rams and the Tennessee Titans have agreed to terms to trade for the first round selection. Now, the Tennessee Titans ended up trading their first round pick to the Los Angeles Rams, almost to the St. Louis Rams. I'm so accustomed to seeing the St. Louis Rams after such a long time out in St. Louis. They're now transitioning back over to Los Angeles where they first began, and it's a hell of a trade, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about a huge blockbuster trade. Now, the Los Angeles Rams are not going to be able to have a second round or a third round selection. They're not going to have a first round pick next year. I think they also are not going to have a second round pick next year in the 2017 draft, or they're going to have any third round selections in the 2017 draft as well. So there's a lot of gain with getting the first round pick in this year's draft, and plus there's a lot of loss. So if you're trying to rebuild in the draft in 2017, you're not going to have a lot of selections. You're going to be looking at the fourth and potentially, fifth and sixth round. I don't know what selections they have in the 2017 draft as of right now, but like I said, there's a lot of subtraction, so they lost a whole lot of draft picks just to get one selection. And the Tennessee Titans and the San Diego Chargers both have been getting a lot of interest either at number 1 and at number 3 from other teams. I know the Philadelphia Eagles were also a team that were trying to get the first overall selection. I don't know what their whole route is at getting. I don't know if they were going to go after a quarterback. Are they going to get Laremy Tunsil to try to build around guys like Lane Johnson on the offensive line? I can understand why they go after Laremy Tunsil. So, there's a lot of ways, but the Philadelphia Eagles think that the trade was a little bit too steep. They backed out, and the Los Angeles Rams took over, and they are now in ahead of the line in the NFL draft. So there's a lot of ways that the Rams can go about their first round overall pick. A lot of people are looking at quarterback. I do understand that they really need a quarterback because they have not had a stable quarterback since Mark Bulger left the team. And Jeff Fisher, for God's some reason, I don't understand why, he thinks that Case Keenum is their answer. Case Keenum is not their answer at all. Case Keenum is nothing more than a backup quarterback in this league, a guy that I would not trust in any high stakes situation. I don't know what the hell's going on in the mind of Jeff Fisher, but he thinks that Case Keenum is their option. Let him think that, and down the line he will actually think that, oh, okay, he's not our option. He's not the best option. We're gonna be having 7 and 9 years, 8 and 8 years, if they're lucky to crack 8 and 8. So, quarterback is a much-needed team. Sam Bradford, you can look at Sam Bradford as a stable quarterback, but he's a guy that I'm a huge fan of. But you know what? He has a nice start to the season, but he always falls off. That's the biggest problem. He's always been injured, so I don't think he's much of that stable quarterback. He's not the quarterback you rely on. The Philadelphia Eagles, he had some great times. He really, showed up at the end of the year, but he was not always a, reliable and stable quarterback. So, beyond there, you can look at Sam Bradford as it, but, you also have the rocky edges around him. So, the Los Angeles Rams, they're going into a whole new stadium here in a couple of years. They're back in Los Angeles. They now have got to look at the quarterback position. Some people say Carson Wentz. Some people say Jared Goff. I think the best option right here for them is going to end up being Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is the best quarterback option in the NFL draft. I'm more of a pocket precision kind of guy. I would actually go with Jared Goff here, but that's just me if I'm running an offense. But Carson Wentz, he makes all the throws. He has the best pro day out of any prospect that, from what I've heard. Everybody is, really hyping him as like the next phenom in the National Football League, even though he comes out of an FCS-based school. So, there's a lot of promise around Carson Wentz. And, the quarterback position, like I said, is really rocky. Case Keenum is I guess, their prime focus. They're probably going to end up opening up camp with a potential quarterback battle. Say if they do go with Carson Wentz, I think Carson Wentz will be the best option to draft at number 1. So, if they do that, I think that they're going to end up battling Case Keenum for a starting job. I think that Jeff Fisher is not coming around saying that is Case Keenum our option. hopefully he's not the long-term option out there in Los Angeles, because I just don't think you're going to end up winning the amount of games as Case Keenum as your quarterback, because I don't think, I'm a kind of guy that thinks that offense wins championships. You have to have a high caliber offense. You have to have a great leader at quarterback. Look at Matt Castle. Matt Castle is a guy that obviously was not an example. He's not going to lead your team to anything successful. You have to have a nice quarterback, a guy who's a great, leader. Am I saying, Carson Wentz is that leader? We'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully he does adapt really well to an NFL, based offense, and he, gets ready to, see what Jeff Fisher has to bring to him. I think the best option right now is Carson Wentz to the Rams, Jared Goff to the Browns at 2, and then at number 3, you can really have a big toss-up. The San Diego Chargers need to rebuild their interior defensive line. I mean, Corey Legion's a good option. Brandon Mebane at defensive tackle or nose tackle, he's an option, or he's a good guy to have on your nose tackle. I know San Diego has just been kind of drained on the defensive lines, on the defensive line front for the last few years, running that 3-4 defense. You can go with Joey Bosa here. I'm a huge advocate for Joey Bosa, but also Jalen Ramsey is an also option there. They're trying to replace Eric Weddle. So San Diego, you take 2 quarterbacks off the board, then you have, an offensive line in Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil was actually the team's, could be the Chargers' target here because they're trying to protect Phillip Rivers. San Diego keeps on flip-flopping their offensive line every single game. I think they had 24 different variations of the offensive line start last year. So it's very wishy-washy out there in San Diego on their offensive line, as always. Every single year it's draft an offensive lineman, draft an offensive lineman, draft an offensive lineman. Got DJ Fluker, King Dunlap had a down year last year. Joe Barksdale had a down year last year, but he started every single game or made an appearance in every single game. So, he was always there for San Diego, but they need to find some stability, and they really need to, start complimenting Phillip Rivers, the guy who needs them, some top tier protection. So, like I said, those are my options. But San Diego, like I said, really needs to build on the defensive line. I think Joey Bosa or DeForest Buckner out of Oregon will be a nice option there for the Chargers at 3. So there you go, guys. That is my little top 3 selections in the 2016 NFL Draft. What do you guys think about this blockbuster deal? What do you guys think about the schedule? The schedule is going to be very exciting. I think we get the Cardinals and the Patriots week 1. Just a hellacious schedule. What a very exciting schedule to kick off the 2016 NFL season. Hopefully, you guys, get your, selections correct in the NFL draft. So, beyond that, guys, I'll sign off for tonight. My name is Justin Kish for the Nexus Sports Network. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button and keep on coming back for more. We got you guys covered in everything in the world of sports. We got the NHL Stanley Cup Finals coming up. Kobe Bryant, we're going to do a big Kobe Bryant podcast here in a little while, so make sure you guys come in and tune in for that. It'll be uploaded either by the end of the week, because we're talking about Kobe Bryant. We're going to go year by year. This guy was a legend. Love Kobe Bryant. Wish him the best in his future endeavors in the world of NBA. In his retirement, a very exciting game last night against the Utah Jazz. So signing off for here, you guys now.